Hey, welcome back to Why I Hate Being a Wife. I'm your host, and today we need to talk about one of the most insulting concepts I've ever encountered: chore play. Let me tell you about the most degrading idea ever invented: the notion that if a man does housework, he should be rewarded with sex. Like I'm a vending machine and the dishes are quarters. Like my body is a prize for him completing basic adult tasks. Like sexual intimacy is a transactional reward system for domestic labor. I've seen the articles, I've seen the advice columns. Men want more sex, do the dishes, the secret to a better sex life, help around the house, she'll be in the mood if you vacuum. And every single time I see this shit, I want to scream because chore play isn't sexy, it's not romantic, it's not the solution to anything. It's insulting. It's degrading, and it's built on completely fucked up premises about relationships, labor, and sexuality. So, today we're going to talk about why chore play is a scam, why it's offensive, and what the actual issue is. Let's start by defining what chore play actually is. Chore play is the idea that domestic labor is foreplay, that if a man does housework, his partner will be more interested in sex, that chores are a pathway to sexual intimacy. It's articles telling men, do the dishes, and she'll want you more. It's advice telling women, if he helps around the house, reward him with sex. It's treating household tasks as currency that can be exchanged for sexual access. It's positioning domestic labor as something men do for women, not as shared responsibility for adults living in the same house. And here's what makes me so angry about this entire concept. It's built on the premise that housework is my job, that he's generously helping me with my work, that I should be grateful enough to fuck him as a thank you. No, just no. Doing the dishes isn't sexy, it's the bare minimum. It's basic adulting. It's him taking care of his own living space. And I'm not going to reward him for it like he's a dog who learned a trick. Let's talk about all the ways chore play is insulting. First, it implies that the housework is my job, that he's generously helping with it. It positions domestic labor as my responsibility, and when he participates, it's a favor to me. No, it's not my job. It's our job. We both live here. We both make messes. We both eat food that dirties dishes. We both wear clothes that need washing. This is shared responsibility for maintaining our shared living space. It's not me delegating my work to him, it's him doing his share. Second, it treats my sexual availability as payment for basic adult tasks. Like my body is something he earns access to by completing chores. That's degrading. My sexuality isn't a reward system. I'm not a prize. Intimacy isn't something you win by doing the dishes. Third, it positions sex as something I withhold and he has to work for, like I'm some gatekeeper of sex who's punishing him by not being interested. But I'm not withholding anything. I'm just fucking exhausted. And there's a difference. Fourth, it completely misunderstands why women in heterosexual relationships often have lower desire. It's not because we're ungrateful for housework help, it's because we're drowning in invisible labor and touched out and burnt out and resentful. Choreplay treats the symptom, low desire, without addressing the cause, inequality and exhaustion. And fifth, it sets the bar so fucking low for men. He does the dishes once and expects praise, gratitude, and sexual reward. Meanwhile, I do the dishes every day and get nothing. The bar for men is in hell, and chore play reinforces that. The entire concept of chore play is built on a false premise. Let me break it down. The premise is women aren't interested in sex because they are stressed out about housework. So, if men do housework, women will be less stressed and more interested in sex. On the surface, that sounds logical, right? But here's what it gets wrong. It's not that I'm stressed about the dishes specifically, it's that I'm exhausted from carrying the entire mental load of managing our household. It's that I'm resentful that everything falls on me. It's that I'm touched out and burnt out and have nothing left to give. Doing the dishes one time doesn't fix that. Doing the dishes as a strategy to get sex doesn't fix that. What would actually help? Him carrying his share of the mental load. Him taking initiative without being asked. Him noticing what needs to be done. Him being a functional partner instead of a helper who needs managing. But chore play doesn't ask for that. It asks for transactional task completion in exchange for sex. And that doesn't solve anything. Also, the premise assumes that the problem is on my end, that I'm the one who's not interested, and we need to fix me by reducing my stress. But maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is that I've spent the day parenting my partner like he's a child, and now I'm supposed to suddenly see him as a sexual being? Maybe the problem is that I'm exhausted and resentful and feeling more like his mother than his partner. Maybe the problem is that he's not actually being sexy by acting helpless and incompetent. Chore play doesn't address any of that. It just tells him to do a chore and expect sex. So let's talk about what actually impacts desire in long term relationships because it's not about whether or not he did the dishes, Desire is impacted by feeling like partners, not parent and child. When I have to manage my husband like he's my child, when I have to delegate and supervise and remind, I stop seeing him as my partner. I start seeing him as another person I have to take care of. And you know what's not sexy? Taking care of another adult like they're helpless. Desire is impacted by having mental space that isn't consumed by managing everything. When my brain is constantly running the background program of household management, when I'm tracking everyone's needs and schedules and tasks, I don't have mental space for desire. I'm too busy thinking about everything else. Desire is impacted by feeling respected and valued. When my work is invisible and unacknowledged, when I'm doing everything and getting no credit, when he's getting praised for minimal effort while I'm getting nothing for maximum effort, I feel resentful. And resentment kills desires. Desire is impacted by actually having energy. When I'm exhausted from doing everything, when I'm touched out from being needed all day, when I collapse into bed at the end of the day, barely able to keep my eyes open, I don't have energy for sex. Not because I don't want to, because I physically don't have anything left to give. Desire is impacted by emotional intimacy and connection. When I feel like we're a team, when I feel seen and understood, when I feel like we're actually partners, that's when I want intimacy. But when I feel like I'm doing everything alone, when I feel invisible, when I feel like he doesn't see how hard this is, I don't feel connected. I feel isolated. None of that is fixed by him doing the dishes one time. None of that is fixed by transactional chore play. What would actually help? Him noticing what needs to be done without being asked, him taking initiative, him carrying half the mental load, him being competent and capable, him treating me like a partner instead of a manager, him sharing the actual responsibility of running our household, not just completing tasks when I assign them. That would be sexy. Not because the housework is inherently erotic, but because it would mean I'm not doing this alone. It would mean I have a partner. It would mean I can actually rest. It would mean I'm not parenting my husband. And when I'm not exhausted, resentful, and feeling like his mother, yeah, I might actually want to have sex with him. But that's not chore play. That's actual partnership. Let's talk about the expectations around chore play because this is where it gets really infuriating. He does the dishes one time, and he expects praise, gratitude, and sexual reward. Look, I did the dishes. Aren't you proud of me? And I'm supposed to be like, oh wow, Thank you so much. You're such a good partner. Let me reward you with my body. No, you did the dishes once. That's basic. Adulting. That's maintaining the space you live in. That's not an achievement worthy of a parade. Meanwhile, I do the dishes every single day, multiple times a day, and I get nothing. No praise, no gratitude, no sexual rewards for completing the endless domestic labor that keeps our household running. Nobody is writing articles about how I should be rewarded for cooking, cleaning, managing, organizing, planning. Nobody is telling him to initiate sex with me because I did the laundry for the 100th time this month. The expectation is that I do these things without acknowledgement. That's my job. That's what wives do. But when he does it, oh, he's a hero. He deserves praise and rewards and sexual gratification. The double standard is infuriating. And here's what really gets me: the expectation that one completed chore should equal sexual access. Like my desire is that simple. Like I'm that easy. Like all it takes is him loading the dishwasher, and suddenly I'm overcome with lust. My sexuality is more complex than that. My desire is impacted by 1,000 factors: emotional connection, stress levels, how I feel about myself, how I feel about our relationship, exhaustion, mental load, how much I'm being touched by kids all day, hormones, how valued I feel. It's not a simple input or output equation where chores equal sex. But Choreplay treats it like it is. Do the task, get the reward, like I'm a machine. And that's dehumanizing. Let's talk about what actually kills desire in relationships: resentment. You know what's not sexy? Resentment. And you know what creates resentment? Inequality. Feeling taken for granted, carrying all the weight while your partner coasts, doing everything and getting no acknowledgement. When I'm angry that I have to ask him to do things, when I'm frustrated that I have to delegate every single task, when I'm exhausted from managing him like a child, I'm not in the mood. Not because I'm punishing him, not because I'm withholding sex, but because I'm resentful and exhausted and I don't feel connected to him anymore. Resentment builds over time. Every time I have to remind him to do something, every time he does something halfway and I have to finish it, every time he gets praised for minimal effort while I get nothing for maximum effort, every time I have to be his manager instead of his partner, all of that builds resentment. And resentment kills desire. You can't resent someone and want to fuck them at the same time. Those two things don't coexist. So when articles about chore play suggest doing the dishes will fix the sex problem, they are missing the point. The problem isn't that I'm stressed about dishes. The problem is that I'm resentful about the fundamental inequality in our relationship. The problem is that I feel like his mother, not his partner. The problem is that I'm exhausted and taken for granted. One completed chore doesn't fix that. Hell, 100 completed chores don't fix that if they're done with the expectation of sexual reward. What would fix it? Actual equality, actual partnership, him taking responsibility without being managed, him noticing and caring and taking initiative, him treating domestic labor as his responsibility too, not as favors he's doing for me. That's what would address the resentment. That's what would rebuild connection. That's what would create space for desire. But that's not chore play. That's actual partnership. And it requires way more than doing the dishes once. Let's talk about one of the biggest desire killers, feeling like your partner's mother. When I have to remind him to do things like he's a child who needs supervision, I feel like his mother. When I have to delegate tasks and check that they get done, I feel his mother. When I have to explain how to do basic things, I feel like his mother. When he acts helpless and incompetent, I feel like his mother. And you know what I don't want to do? Fuck someone who feels like my child. The mother son dynamic is a desire killer. It's impossible to see someone as a sexual partner when you are parenting them. And chore play reinforces this dynamic. Do your chores and you'll get a reward. That's how you talk to children, not partners. When he does the dishes and expects praise and reward, he's acting like a child who completed a chore chart and expects a gold star. And I'm supposed to be the mommy who rewards him with sex? That's fucked up. If he wants me to desire him, he needs to stop acting like someone I have to parent. He needs to be a competent, capable adult who takes responsibility without being managed. That's sexy. Not the act of doing dishes itself, but the competence, the initiative, the partnership, when he notices what needs to be done and does it without being asked. That's attractive. Not because housework is sexy, but because competence is sexy. Because I can relax and trust that he's got it. Because I'm not his mother anymore. But when he does one chore and expects a cookie, that reinforces the parent child dynamic and that kills desire. So let's talk about what would actually help, what would actually impact desire in a positive way. Stop treating housework as transactional. Don't do chores expecting sex in return. Do them because you are an adult who lives here and this is your responsibility to share the mental load, not just the task. Don't wait to be assigned tasks. Notice what needs to be done. Think ahead. Take initiative. Be responsible for knowing, not just doing. Be consistent. Don't do the dishes once and expect credit forever. Do your share every day, consistently, without praise or reward, the way I do. Stop expecting praise for basic shit. You don't get a trophy for loading the dishwasher. That's not an achievement. That's life. Treat household labor as actual labor that matters, not as a chore to get through so you can get to the real stuff. This is the real stuff. This is how we maintain our lives. Notice when I'm overwhelmed and step up without being asked. If I'm drowning, don't ask, what can I do to help? look around and figure it out. Take something off my plate without me having to delegate it. Understand that attraction is about the whole relationship, not individual chore completion. You can't fix relationship inequality with transactional housework. You have to actually be a partner. Stop seeing sex as something you earn or I withhold. Sex is about connection, intimacy, desire. It's not a transaction, it's not a reward. It's something we share when we both want it. And forcing it into a transactional framework kills the intimacy that creates desire. Create actual space for me to rest. If I'm never able to fully relax because I'm always the one responsible, I don't have space for desire. I need to not be managing everything constantly. I need mental space. I need energy. I need to not be touched out and burnt out. Be the kind of partner I want to desire. Be competent. Be present. Be emotionally available. Be someone who notices and cares. Be someone who takes responsibility. Be someone I respect as an equal. That's what would actually help, not chore play, actual partnership. Here's a real issue that chore play tries to address without actually addressing it. Women in heterosexual relationships are often less interested in sex than their male partners. That's a real phenomenon. It's documented. It's something a lot of couples struggle with, but the reason isn't that women are prudes or withholding or don't like sex. The reason is that women are fucking exhausted. We're carrying the mental load. We're doing the majority of domestic labor. We are the default parent. We're managing everything. We are exhausted and touched out and resentful. And when you're in that state, desire is really fucking hard. And it's not that we don't like sex. It's that we don't have the energy or mental space or emotional connection that creates desire. And Choreplay tries to fix this by having men do some housework, which sure might help a little bit with the workload, but it doesn't address the fundamental issues, the inequality in the relationship, the mental load that's still on us, the resentment we feel, the exhaustion we are experiencing, the lack of true partnership. Chore play is a band aid on a broken bone. It's not solving the actual problem. The actual problem is that relationships are often unequal. The women carry more of the load. That we're expected to do invisible labor without acknowledgement. That we are exhausted and taken for granted. Fix that, and desire might return. But you don't fix it with transactional sex for chores. You fix it with actual equality, actual partnership, actual sharing of the load. Chore play is a scam. It's built on the premise that housework is my job and is helping me with it. It treats my body as a reward for basic adulting. It positions sex as transactional instead of intimate, and it completely misses the actual problem. The problem isn't that I'm exhausted about dishes. The problem is that I'm exhausted from carrying everything. The problem is that I resent the inequality. The problem is that I feel like his mother instead of his partner. And you don't fix that by doing the dishes one time and expecting sex. You fix it by actually being a partner, by carrying your share, by taking responsibility, by noticing and caring and taking initiative. That might create space for desire. Not because housework is sexy, but because partnership is, because competence is, because not having to parent your partner is. So, no, I'm not going to fuck you because you loaded the dishwasher. That's not how this works. But if you actually step up, if you actually share the load, if you actually be a partner, then maybe I'll have the energy and space and emotional connection to want intimacy. But that's not about shore play. That's about actual equality in our relationship. And that requires a lot more than doing the dishes once and expecting a reward. All right, that's it for today. Next time, we are talking about the good wife performance and how exhausting it is to keep smiling while drowning behind the scenes. Until then, remember, you are not a vending machine. Your body isn't a prize, and sex isn't a reward for basic adulting. This is why I hate being a wife. I'm your host, and I'll see you next time. Take care.